Chat, what is up, everybody? Our little bit of mayhem that we do every week. And it's an exciting weekend this week because we got some big events actually happening, which is very cool. Oh no, my my viewer is off center. I think because we were doing Reddit last. I'll fix that in a sec. In any case, chat, we have a major to talk about in the new format with a bunch of absolutely insane results. The major was the Glass City Grand Tournament. It used an interesting format. It actually did like a pod broken format. So it actually, it ended up breaking its players down by wins early, and they would play each other. What that means for our purposes is that it does tend to... Here we go, chat. There's going to be a lot of undefeated. Like an absolutely insane number of undefeated. Oh, man. This is all messed up. I don't know what I did here. Let me see if I can fix that. All right, that's a little bit better. There's a ton of there's 3 undefeated. It's Ultramarine stuff. Who cares at this point? If you want with Ultramarines, I don't know, become creative. But we saw all the X in 1 category because it only ran 5 rounds with 100 players. The X in 1 category was fucking insane. Look at all these lists, chat. So we're going to dive in to talk about some of these X and 1s, talk about what's going well at that B tier of the meta. I don't think it's too surprising to say, oh, look at that, Ultramarines is doing well. What a shocking turn of events. However, these lists are where the spice is at, and that's what we're going to be hopping into today. With that said, before we hop in, I do have to mention one more time our sponsor, Captain Con. You see him in the little thing in the corner right here. Boom. There's a QR code and everything. You can get 10% off a coupon or a badge there for Captain Con. Use coupon code TT2026 at checkout. That will reduce the cost of your badge price, and the badge gets you a ton of stuff. It gets you a full weekend of games, 3 full days. The cool thing about Captain Con is it's a holistic gaming convention. You get tabletop games, all sorts, all kinds, including board games. There's a huge board game library and like a huge open play area. There are RPG one-shots as well as miniature gaming events, demos, tournaments, all that stuff. There's a huge vendor hall. All the classic tabletop gaming convention fare. The cool thing, though, is that as you participate in events or you visit vendors and you take demos, you actually get points, what's called the Captain's Log. And you could go to, there's a desk there where they give out prizes based on your Captain's Log points at the end of the weekend. So you can use it to like redeem for free board games and 3 free miniature kits and, you know, get yourself some boxes of Intercessors or whatever. In addition to that, there's also going to be 64-player GTs for both Warhammer 40k and Age of Sigmar. Forgot how to speak for a moment there. That's being run by Away Games. We love Away Games. We love Captain Con. Highly recommend it. It's in Warwick, Rhode Island, first weekend of February. That's going to be January 30th through February 2nd, I believe. So it's the Friday is the January. And then for February 1st and 2nd, I believe, is the weekend. But basically first like day of February is what's going on. So yeah, that's what's up, chat. We do love Away Games events. Indeed. And that's what we talked about. So that was sweet. Anyway, chat, I think we should hop into some lists. All that being out of the way, I want to go down and talk about some stuff, including, I think the unsung heroes of the weekend were Chaos Space Marines, because we had several players rocking really interesting Chaos Space Marine lists, including, if I won't bury the lead here, a Nightmare Hunt, the new Grotsmas detachment. It's all about battle. Provided by our friends over at Tabletop Live. So if you want to watch those finals games, you can watch them over there at Tabletop Live. They're on YouTube. I highly recommend check them out. Speaking of live streaming, by the way, I'm going to be live starting this Friday, at the Tennessee Elite Open TEO Teams of 8. That's TEO. That's the joke. And that's going to be an 8-player team event. I just put a ton into upgrading the setup to run up to 8-player team events even better. What I should have is better score tracking for both teams put together. I'm going to have scoring tablets on every single table, so we're going to be able to jump between tables and get live scores from them, assuming the players cooperate, of course. And so, yeah, it's going to be a lot. So I'm excited. Hopefully it goes well. And please check that out. In the live tab on this channel, the Friday of the event is already posted, so you can click the notification bell to get notified on that. In any case, we're going to talk about some Chaos Space Marine chat. Kyle Treya went pretty well here. 4th place with the highest results out of an X and 1, 2 100-point wins. Lyle Dixon here with 4 100-pointers plus a 35. That's kind of wild. Got absolutely destroyed round 1 of the just 100 pointed out his final games. Insane. With his appropriately named list, comedically humorous roster name. That's a good one, Kyle. We appreciate you. Running Renegade Raiders. So that was the previous powerhouse of Chaos Space Marines for a really long time. That's the one that gives you assault on all your guns, and then you get bonuses when you attack enemies on objectives. You get AP bonuses, and you have a bunch of stratagems to like advance and charge. Get bonuses when you disembark transports, and those will typically key off when you target enemies that are on objectives as well. So, for example, you can advance and charge on a unit and get +1 to that charge if they're on an objective. We've got a Chaos Lord, no upgrades, Cypher, Fabius Bile, kind of standard character loadout here. We do have Legionaries. Let's see what the infantry bricks look like. It's a 1 chosen unit, a 10-man model chosen for Fabius Bile, which is kind of like the quintessential for Chaos Space Marines. Let's zoom into the roster here, actually push it over. Hopefully it's a little bit easier to read. Chaos Biker Squad, excuse me, the Bikers are nice in this attachment because you have a stratagem to move at the end of the fight phase. And the Bikers get a 12-inch move from that, so they can actually do a lot of weird stuff where if you engage them, they can jump out and then put 6 OC onto an objective rather than being prevented from doing actions and stuff, which you would normally expect. You can kind of gotcha people with that to get extra points. 3 Chaos Rhinos to proc all of the transport. Synergies. 10 Warp Talons. Big benefit is that you get +1 AP targeting enemies on objectives, and the Warp Talons basically anytime you can give them a any sort of offensive buff, the chances that they proc their end of phase runaway is huge. So not only being able to advance and charge with them, because that's on infantry or mounted, so they qualify, you're also going to be potentially going up to AP 3. And you have a, yeah, that's it, actually. Go to AP3. That's the thing. You do have to have destroyed somebody. I guess you could auto 6 advance them, so like their capacity to like just blitz out turn 1 to hit somebody is really good. But that's a 2 CP combo, so I don't know if you necessarily want that. But a lot of times what you're going to be able to do with these guys is hide them turn 1. If your opponent puts a utility on objectives to score points, you can then just like advance and charge, run them out in the middle, kill that unit, go into reserve, rapid ingress the next turn, do it again. And so you can constantly just like be feeding, your opponent's like feeding you by scoring any points on tactical secondaries. And then we have a bunch of nice little allies, a Nurgling squad for infiltration, a Beast of Nurgle unit for scout, so we get turn 1 utility, 2 Noise Marine units. They're going to go inside the Rhinos. They do gain the assault and bonus AP from the detachment. Importantly, they don't Dark Pact, but if you put them in a Rhino, they can Dark Pact. So you can be firing, you can advance and shoot and fire 6 Blastmaster shots with sustained hits, AP 3, ignore cover, shooting out of the top of a Rhino. Which gets pretty crazy. And then if you hit something big, you can get reroll hit and wounds when you disembark a transport. You don't get the Dark Pact when you do so, because obviously now you're shooting on your own, but you're firing the however many, between 6 and 12 Blastmaster shots plus 12 of the Sonic Blaster shots, and all of those are going to be full rerolls, which into like medium infantry and stuff becomes incredibly good with AP2 or AP3 ignore cover. So just super solid profile in this detachment specifically, because AP buffs tend to go super duper hard with Noise Marines. So honestly, pretty standard. There's 2 Predator Destructors here as well. They benefit from the +1 AP quite a bit too, because they have that autocannon. It's only AP1, but it goes to AP2 against non-vehicles, and it goes to AP3 if they target something autoed objective. So suddenly, like, you can pray for lethal hits or sustained hits, and you put a bunch of these shots that are actually high enough AP to punch through 2+ armor saves, which suddenly becomes actually pretty spooky. Whereas normally they would be, they're kind of underpowered, generally speaking, in the sort of armor metagame that we're playing at right now. So this is kind of a blast from the past army list here. We've been seeing versions of this back in the day, like 2 years ago. This was very popular. The difference now is that we do get that new Emperor's Children Noise Marine data sheet, which is incredibly good in Renegade Raiders. Makes them incredibly consistent. However, that's not the only X and 1 Chaos missions we want to talk about. Brian Dougherty, well, I think he has a YouTube channel, right? He's from is he from Red Path? Is that the one? Because he's normally Chaos Space Marine player, but this time he has left, or excuse me, a World Eaters player. But this time he has left his World Eaters behind for a Nightmare Hunt, which is crazy. So I'm excited to talk about what is actually good about Nightmare Hunts, because obviously, this is not a detachment that has seen a ton of play since it was released, because I think a lot of people have been sort of playing around with it. But the downside is that it requires you to rely on battle shock checks, which is really awkward, especially in a universe where we're seeing a lot of like demon players right now, and forcing battle shock checks on enemies can actually be beneficial for them. So you're like, do I want to play that? However, if you play into something like Space Marines, their leadership characteristic is sort of average, so there's a pretty reasonable chance they fail battle shock. If you can stack enough penalties on them, you can get them to -2-ish on battle shock checks. There's a pretty reasonable chance they fail. And an Ultramarine army failing battle shock is a nightmare, because now they turn off every single synergy that they have. Essentially, all of their stratagems, free strats, extra CP don't mean anything for that unit. They can't. I believe they can't Blood Surge the battle shock, right? Is it in the Blood Surge commentary? I can't remember. They changed that rule so many times. That's I believe that's the case, but I'm gonna fact check myself on that.
At Bucket of Steel Sybil donated $6 Canadian and 99 cents through Super Chat. New Nightbringer is unplayable. It can't kill Victrix.
Can't kill Victrix. Unplayable. Absolutely trash. Basically horrible. Yeah, surge moves, you can't make a surge move out of your battle shock. So if you battle shock it like a Victrix Honor Guard unit, they can't reactive move for squad tactics. They can't surge move in your shooting phase. They can't Armor of Contempt. They can't fight on death. They can't interrupt. Literally nothing. They can do nothing. They just stand there and they absorb damage, and you get rerolls against them. So that's amazing. Buckle Steel Killboat, thank you for the super chat. We'll talk about the new Nightbringer and all those data sheets tomorrow. I want a sec to go through them, because there's a lot of weird stuff with them, especially Wardens of Ultramar and Lieutenant Titus. But we also got the new Necron drops today, and I think it's going to be interesting. The Nightbringer change is wild. The new Nightbringer profile. The new Destroyer guy is really cool. He basically provides you this huge aura of sustained hits, and you can give him like permanent lone operative, I believe, if you put him next to a what do you call that guy? A Hexmark Destroyer. So there's something there for sure. I think he depends a lot on his points value, because he does hit like a truck, but he's not like the tankiest thing in the world. He's just like a big guy. And it's interesting that he's not an attachment for units. He just provides a huge aura. But I think he's probably going to be good. It depends on values, obviously. Plus the new Catan Shard is going to be sweet. Yeah, and the article did mention that the other Catan Shard is getting profile updates as well. So I think we might be back to our multiple Catan Shard builds. Moving on to the future, I think we're back to Hypercrypt Legion, a bunch of Catan Shards, which is going to be kind of sick. I like that list because I'm a degenerate Timmy, and all I want to do is put big idiots on the table and not move that many models. But I know that a lot of people are going to have a bad time. In fairness, I do think that moving to damage reduction and making the Catan Shards what I imagine to be higher impact, but also higher cost, feels better to me than the previous version. Because previously they weren't the most expensive thing in the world, or 300-ish points for this thing that had this incredibly specifically beneficial profile into very specific matchups. But it was like, it's 12 wounds, half damage, feel no pain, no armor, 4+ invuln. Or limited armor, right? If you're AP1, I think you didn't care about the armor because it was a 4-up. So cover didn't matter at that point. So you were looking for like very specific, like high volume attacks. -1 damage means that they don't zero out big incoming attacks as easily. So if you hit like high damage devastating wounds, you could actually kill them really quickly. I don't know. I think it's going to be a slightly more, like they have more wounds and they reanimate better. So who knows? But I think it's going to be more interesting game plan, especially if they're like 350, 380 points, something like that, which I kind of imagine. It's like Primarch level. They're like a demon Primarch almost, you know, at that profile. Anyway, that's talk for tomorrow. We'll get into that tomorrow. Right now, we want to talk about Nightmare Hunt. They can still get Battle Shocks. It's true. Nightmare Hunt. Nightmare Hunt's going to look good. Battle Shock the Catan shards. We'll get +1 to win against them. All right. Should we click on the YouTube video, chat? I'm a little bit worried. I'm going to pre-screen it. Incredible. That's very good. Boo. All right. So we are rocking a Chaos Lord with Terror Glut Parasite. So that is -1 to Battle Shock checks. Forces Battle Shock checks on everyone within engagement range at -1. You can stack that with Noise Marine, so you can force it at -2. Right? That's already okay. You don't give a natural Battle Shock penalty outside of your opponent's command phase. Below starting strength. So this is one of the ways you get a natural, or not. You could force Battle Shock at naturally -1 in addition to Noise Marines, which I assume we're playing. Yeah, there they are. 2 Noise Marine squads. The Noise Marines, lesser known ability, -1 to Battle Shock checks for the rest of the until your next turn. So they will, if you shoot them, for example, in the shooting phase, they're going to be -1. You engage them with the Chaos Lord, they're going to be -2. That's a foot Chaos Lord, by the way, not a jump back guy. We do have another one, Warp Fueled Thrusters. The nice thing here, so that gives him an uppy downy for his whole unit at the end of your opponent's fight phase, so then they drop in from Strategic Reserve. The nice thing there is that you can use Horrific Incursion to force Battle Shocks on enemies in your own movement phase when you arrive from Reserve. The Noise Marine debuff, I don't know how long it lasts. I imagine it's till the start of your next turn. Oh, start of your next shooting phase. So what you can do, interestingly, is shoot a unit in your shooting phase, right? Apply the -1 Battle Shock. If you killed a model in the unit, then they're below starting strength, and if they're within 12 inches of you during their own command phase, they take a Battle Shock at -2. Then, in your next movement phase, your Warp Fueled Thruster guy comes down, he Horrific Incursions, and he forces an additional Battle Shock check at -2. So you have 2 chances before your next shooting phase to Battle Shock that unit before the next time you activate. It requires a lot of setup, I think, at that point, but you can also just force a Battle Shock for 1 CP, or for free if you use his CP cost reduction ability. Just force at -1 and hope for the best, basically. If you're facing like base leadership 7 infantry, you're probably okay. Once you get to leadership 6 and you get to your opponent has a greater than 50% chance to pass a Battle Shock check, it's really a little bit weird. But if you are able to apply and maintain the Noise Marine buff on them, then it gets very unlikely they pass the Battle Shock check. We have another jump pack captain with Sorrow Sent Vulture. That's the one where he attaches into a Warp Talon unit and gives them 6-inch scout. We do have a advance and charge or a stratagem in the detachment. Malicious Surge, which allows you to push that unit crazy far. So their base move 12, they get advance and charge plus a 6-inch scout. If they go first and you can't block the scout, they move 18 inches plus 3d6, and then charge something in your deployment zone. If they kill it, they go to reserve, hop back down later, do it again. The whole 9 yards, the thing we just talked about. So I imagine we have a big unit of Warp Talons, 10 Warp Talons to go with that guy. Let's go. So you can, even if your opponent is beginning to screen out your scout, you basically just get a unit for free. They have 2 options. The 2 options are eat a charge from 10 Warp Talons turn 1. Not ideal. Or you screen the scout, so it's difficult for them to get to your deployment zone turn 1, and they just kill the scouting unit instead, and then pop up in a reserve anyway. So it's like this you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. In this case, the Warp Talons are going to get something turn 1, and they're going to kill you. Potentially. The other thing you could do is like you lead with really high resilience units that are difficult for the Warp Talons to kill, so they can't necessarily engage in profitably, but you still have a scouting unit that's incredibly fast. So you're able to take a lot of board position and just threaten weird angles from these guys. So pretty cool stuff. We have 1, 2, 3 units of Raptors. That's some more Battle Shock outlet because they force Battle Shock checks at the start of the fight phase. I believe it started fight phase. Unless it's a charge phase. It might be charge phase. So another thing that you can do is It is start of the fight phase. Yeah. Awkwardly, it doesn't stack either. So each Raptor unit forces one test, but it doesn't duplicate if you've engaged a unit with multiple Raptor units. The other thing is that they apply a -1 Battleshock test bubble. So you can force with the Raptors at -1 base. If you shoot them at Noise Marines, it becomes -2. And then start of the fight phase, your Foot Lord can apply an additional -1 with his start of phase Battleshock check. So you can be at -3 in that case, if you have a Raptor unit and a Noise Marine squad. And then if you don't kill them, or you have something you didn't kill, you're going to force another one at potentially up to -3. If you have the Noise Marine buff, a Raptor nearby, and the detachment ability within 12 inches of a Chaos Space Marine, if you're below starting strength, then they force another Battleshock check. So as long as the Raptors live and they sort of get up in the scrum, they can start ensuring that you do get your Battleshock checks off pretty reliably. Once you get to -3, a lot of times your opponent's looking for like a 9 or a 10 to succeed, and that gets pretty tough. So at that point, you're pretty confident that you're going to be battle-shocking people. From there, we have 2 Chaos Vindicators, plus the Noise Marine squads. No transports, I believe, right? Is that true? Oh, no, 2 Rhinos for the Noise Marines. Just kidding. We do have the Noise Marines. So the important thing to hear here is that, obviously, the thing we talked about previously where the Noise Marines don't have Dark Packs built in. They will get it if they're in a Rhino, but importantly, they don't get their Battleshock reduction ability when they're inside the Rhino, because it's the Rhino shooting, not the Noise Marine unit. So you have to disembark them in order to apply their -1 to Battleshock effect, which does mean they do have to open themselves up to retaliation. However, I think the idea is that if we can target specific enemies and start sort of chaining Battleshocks, where you can like have one unit hit one thing, the next unit hit the next thing, you use your fight phase Battleshocks to buff yourself to the point where you can kill the first unit, then bring the second unit below starting, because you have you have Raptors plus the detachment plus the Noise Marines. You can Battleshock the second unit. Hopefully they won't be able to come back and deal with the Noise Marines, and you get to continue to apply the buffs. The other thing is, like, are you going to shoot the Noise Marines that are 18 inches away, or are you going to shoot the Raptors and the other melee units that are directly in front of you? Yeah, because there's also a bunch of Legionnaires too. There's 2 Legionnaires for the Foot Chaos Lord to hop into, and then we have a utility one as well. Plus Cypher. So even in the times where your opponent can use stratagems, you're CP taxi him anyway. It's interesting. So absolutely wild list. Pretty crazy. And then the benefits that you get when you are battle-shocking enemies, you get +1 AP against battle-shocked enemies for 1 CP. You get +1 to wound against them, and if they're below half strength, you also get +1 to hit against them. So you can unlock basically +1/+1/+1 AP against most units in your opponent's army if you can combo them together correctly, which obviously requires a lot of setup, but it is possible to do. So that's pretty cool. There's a cap to Battleshock debuffs. There's a cap, I believe, to leadership. Is that true? Yeah, I don't know if the I know there's a cap to the lowest you could reduce somebody's leadership to. I don't know if you have just straight up Battleshock test reduction actually caps anywhere. But stuff that reduces your leadership characteristic, it does cap. I can't find it in commentary. Doesn't mean it's not there, but I don't know if there's a cap. Not in fairness though, it's like unlikely you're going to get above -2 in a lot of these cases. The -3s are like kind of pie in the sky, right? Like you have Raptors plus the Noise Marine buff plus the detachment buff or the Lords start of phase thing. You're going to get it a couple times per game, but it's not every time. But -2 is relatively easy. You just have to run the Raptors in to Battleshock enemies. It also makes the Raptors like kind of weirdly good disruption pieces, because you can, even though they're only OC1, a lot of times you just have to kill one model out of a unit and then force a -2 Battleshock check on them, and then as long as the Raptors are within 6, and then there's a pretty reasonable chance that like a light utility unit fails a test, even if they put a bunch of OC on objective. Cap is 9 for leadership characteristics. Yeah, that's what I thought. And I don't believe any of these reduce leadership characteristics. They're all -1 to Battleshock test results. Because I think the same is true for Noise Marines. And Terrorglet Parasite. Yeah, that's -1 to result. Raptors, interestingly, affect leadership tests, but they don't affect leadership value. -1 to the result for Battleshock or leadership tests, which means, importantly, they affect the mirror match really badly because they give all enemies -1 to their dark packs as well. Almost the only time that leadership tests by themselves actually matter, outside of like Black Templar Castellans, I guess, where they get command points when they kill people on a leadership test, and like Emperor's Children, like Icons of Excess, maybe. Very, very seldom does actual leadership characteristic modifier or leadership test modifying matter. Noise Marines, I believe, are also -1 to the test. They're weird because it's a persistent ability that gives you -1 to your rolls. Yeah. Battleshock or leadership test. Yeah, they also affect it. That's so fun. That's funny, actually. It's like really good in the mirror match. I didn't consider that, but that's hilarious. Is that because a lot of your effects debuff leadership tests as well. You're actually really good against other Chaos Space Marine armies. You make them do a bunch of damage to themselves. That's pretty funny, chat. Yeah. In final game against Folger charged with Drukari bikes on the objective, failed the battle strike checks. The Raptors didn't score secondary. Classic. We had that happen in the game at one point. It was a Richard Siegler game. And at Crucible, I want to say. And we had Custody jet bikes, Dawn Eagle jet bikes, charge into a unit of Sicaria infiltrators. The infiltrators like were chained back to a battle line guy. So they're like, leadership test at -2, please. And the Custodies failed the test. Couldn't use their secondaries to buff themselves, didn't kill the infiltrator unit, and then didn't score secondaries, and then was like, I guess I'll do my fallback move into phase because they had a captain, and then realized we're like, wait, I have to take Desperate Breakout now because I'm engaged falling back with a battle-shocked unit. It was like, oh my god, this is a disaster. It's all gone wrong. That could absolutely happen. It's one of the ways where start of fight phase battle shocks are actually really impactful. Easy if you could use them on the defensive, which is kind of cool. And I think we have a couple more of those too, right? Because like Assault Terminator Squads in their new data sheet, I believe they can be charged and also do the same thing, right? I'm going to fact check myself on that. But they changed the timing of their ability, I believe, to be start of fight phase instead of when they make a charge move. If the Space Marine faction pack would load after its 200 pages of additional data sheets. Yeah, start of the fight phase. Each enemy unit in engagement range takes a battle shock check. It's not even one. It's not like Raptors, where it's units engaged with one or more. It's just everyone takes it. No cap. Interesting. Pretty cool. I don't know. Also, they have 6 Lightning Claw attacks. There's probably a Lightning Claw build out there somewhere. 5, 2, 1, twin length. 6 attacks each. Get them to 8 in 7 at strength 7 in Liberator, or 8 attacks in that other detachment that people play, Rage Cursed Onslaught. Pretty cool stuff, chat. So anyway, that's Nightmare Hunt doing really well. It is unfortunate that Brian played in the finals, but because his games were relatively close, he scored 65 points twice. But because the games were relatively close, he didn't have the tiebreakers to make it higher in the event. So even though only a couple of these players scored high above him, only a couple of players were undefeated in the final round, he scored at the bottom of them, which is sad. But it is what it is. In fact, all the players, it looks like, who lost in the finals got kind of cucked on tiebreakers there. Didn't use path to victory scoring, I guess. I guess we probably just went battle points, which is why we see like these big hundreds in the top. All right, chat. Well, there's a bunch of other factions to talk about. If we want to take a peek at some results, what do people want to hear? Is this people asking for Tyranids previously? So we can take a peek at Tyranids. David Delisle over here with a Subterranean Assault list with a Hyper-Adapted Ravener squad. No other characters. No Swarmy. No Old One-Eye. Just a Hyper-Adapted unit. No Trigon Primes either. Just this one unit hanging out. We've got a Biovore for scoring, a Lictor for deploy, double Neuro Lictor, more Battleshock stuff. Let's go. +2 Molochs. The Molochs also have the opportunity to force Battleshock if they roll high enough on their Death from Below ability. So they can actually combo pretty well with the Neuro Lictors if you're down upping them constantly. Because we can pull multiple burrowers into reserve, the Moloch you can dive double Moloch every turn and then rebuild them, create new tunnel markers, and also force mortal wounds. The downside is that the Molochs aren't super good. Reroll once they hit on them is pretty good, but they're not super good by themselves. So they are only good basically when they're being applied with the stratagem. But it does end up adding up a bunch of damage over the course of the game. For 135 points, they basically take care of your tunnel construction needs, and they will also do enough damage. Like they'll probably do somewhere around 4-ish mortal wounds per turn for the entire game, which if you add it together is like 16 damage plus whatever they do normally. So they actually can stack up damage pretty hardcore. And a lot of times what you'll do is you'll end up with like Moloch towards the end of the game to start picking off units that are low after the attrition anyway. We're running double Nornus Emissary plus Assimilator, which is cool. The Assimilator being high impact, like actually strength 12 up to 13. With 2+ weapon skill is actually pretty important because he's basically hitting 100% of the time through ones. So it's actually a pretty reasonable chance to get through the D6 +1 damage swings. The downside is the cost and survivability, but you can also ensure that he gets charges out of reserve because he swings with a if he harpoons a vehicle, he charges it +2, so he's actually making 4-inch charges out of Deep Strike, which is kind of spooky. You can just basically ensure that he gets in. That's cool. I wish he had an invuln save, though. If he had an invuln save, I don't know. So might be talking better about Tyranids. 275 points for this guy is like wild. We have triple Raveners plus a Screamer Killer. So we can try to force Neuro Lictor tests on people. Compound that with the Screamer Killer test. So force another one at -1. If you get one of those off, you get +1 to wound. And suddenly all of these the Norns with like mid-strength weapons actually become pretty sweet. Their like base strength 9 melee goes to strength 10 with +1 to wound. So they wound both targets on 3s or 4s, which actually gets to the point where they start to do reasonable damage to people. Plus the Screamer Killer is much easier to actually engage with in this particular detachment because you can force so many things down your opponent's throat. I do like this Screamer Killer. I wish their baseline, like, their, like, base stats were, or, like, movement characteristics was a little bit better, but in this detachment, it's probably the way you get the one that you get use out of them with. If there was another way to force a -1 to Battleshock checks, like we we're talking with Nightmare Hunt, where you can get up to, like, -3 at a lot of things, the Screamer Killer forces a check at -1, but Tyranids don't have any other leadership debuff effects outside of Synaptic Nexus, I believe, which means that a lot of times it's just a coin flip whether or not their ability procs to Battleshock people. And if it doesn't, then the Screamer Killer is really pillow-fisted. If it does, and you get to combo them with a Neuro Lictor for +1 to wound, the Screamer Killer hits like a truck. But the downside is if he goes into vehicles, he's not going to do anything unless he has +1 to wound, in which case he feels pretty good. But reroll 1s on his gun is good because it confirms that you can hit somebody more reliably. And reroll 1s on his talons is also good because he attacks a million times. 10 3-damage attacks is sick. If we see there are rumored changes to things like Victor Chanagard to pull them to 3 wounds, if that becomes the case, then these Tyranid profiles that attack a million times with like 3-damage attacks are actually going to be sick. Assuming that that metagame sort of persists if that change does get made. Is there any access to 4-damage nids? No. I don't. There's 3 damage, and there's D6 +6. Those are basically the only profiles you get. In addition to like infantry sweeping, there's no flat 4s at all in the whole faction, to my knowledge. I believe that's the case. But they're awkward into most heavy infantry profile Tyranids are actually great because everything has like a strength 10 3 damage weapon. The downside is that strength 10 3 damage is worthless in every other situation. However, if you're attacking somebody who's bringing like a bunch of Gravis units, you're like, this is the best day ever. I'm so excited to immediately kill your whole army. The downside is that as soon as you get to that 4 wound like break point, you're like, well, this sucks. I'm gonna die, I guess. But like all the Norns have 6 extra 3 damage attacks. The Scrimmer Killer attacks 10 times with 3 damage attacks. We don't have any Trigons, but the Trigons attack 12 times with 3 damage attacks. It's all 3 damage. Everything's 3 damage. 3 damage down basically down the whole line, which does get weird in the metagame currently. So that's Tyranids, chat. I believe that's the only Tyranids in the top 16 here. It is indeed. So Cast Mission realized they didn't write down their detachment, but I believe it's Creations of Bile. Go down the list and talk about some other stuff. Gene Stealer cults while we're on the Tyranid thing here. How many rules? Justin Balog at 4-1 with Final Day. We get to talk about Tyranids even more. This is running double Biophagus, so we get lethal hits on people. We have a Patriarch with Enraptured Damnation, so you can't overwatch him. Double Reductus Saboteur plus his Sanctus, so we have a bunch of infiltration as well. The 2 Biophagus is interesting. You don't very often see multiple Biophagus units inside this detachment, but you do get you can get wound rerolls in melee, which isn't super proc it's not like crazy synergistic with the Biophagus. Biophagus is just like sort of passively buffing your melee output's probably fine. Because we can get full wound rerolls and we can get +1 to hit and wound against enemies that kill characters. Kill Tyranid characters, not Gene called characters. We have a auto pistol ally hybrid unit, so we can farm CP. A Goliath truck. 5 Achilles Ridge Runners, so 1 Survey Auger, heavy mortar, spotter unit, and then we have 2 sets of heavy mining lasers. Those are so that we can get the +1 to hit when we target enemies near near your Tyranid units. So they can be hitting on 2s. Spotter improves your ballistic skill, then you get +1 for the Final Day detachment ability, which lets your Tyranids spot for your Genestone Occultists. We have Jackals, 2 units of hybrid metamorphs. That's where the Biophagus are going to be going. Another unit of 5, just to have another little unit with a surge move, I guess. 15 Pure Strain Genestealers, big unit for the Patriarch, so we can sort of plow in really early and GL people, and that lets you set up charges for your metamorphs the next turn. And then we have 3 Lictors, a Neurolictor, and a Trigon. What? A Trigon? That's sick. I guess, like... there are no Neophyte hybrids here, right? No. You can get +1 to hit on the Trigons if they eat Genestone Occultists, and you can regenerate him. And he has a bunch of wounds. The Trigons are 14 wounds, I think, so there's a non-zero chance he lives. But then I guess the other benefit, no, there's no characters at all, so we don't get to trigger the vengeance strat. That's just off the table. That's fascinating. Yeah, I guess like the Trigon's good for providing +1 to hit. Because you can 6-inch deep strike it. So there's like a stratagem we can increase to the catalyst range to turn it, so you can make it so that they project the +1 to hit more easily, and then you can also more easily get them within 6 inches to get reroll wounds in melee.
Chris10241 donated $2 through Super Chat. 6 inches deep strike, 1 CP extend catalyst to 9 inches nuts.
Yeah. I beat you to the punch there, I guess, Chris. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate you, bud. Yeah, so we can it's command phase to pump the size of their aura. Oh no, any phase. Just kidding. Doesn't matter. So you can just deep strike them 6 inches away or 9 inches away from something like 8.9 because they can go within 9, but outside 6. And then you can pay a CP start of shooting to make them a 9-inch bubble to buff all of the little guys. And then if your opponent doesn't kill it, you can regenerate it. Just eat some guys. Nom 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 nom. Yeah, the downside is I guess you can't eat TacticalTortoise and then regenerate them. The timing doesn't work. But that's interesting. Yeah. Well, Chris, I appreciate the super chat anyway, buddy. That's a cool combo. That's really sick, actually. The extra range on the catalyst thing. And then we're rocking 1 Neurolictor and a bunch of lictors. So we have tons and tons of infiltration, right? All these guys, plus the Pure Strange Gene Stealers, plus all these guys. So we're infiltrating like 8 units up in the middle of the table. So you can really clear out enemies turn 1. You can like basically clear the whole midboard. And that opens you up for rapid ingresses on the Metamorphs or just movement on the Metamorphs out of the Goliath truck. So you can keep the pressure on your opponent, like moving into round 2. And then you have Achilles Ridge Runner sitting in the back that could just continuously shoot over the course. That's really sick. That's a cool list. I like it a lot. I like it a lot, chat. What else we got going on? There are some Thousand Suns. I know some people were asking for Thousand Suns. Ryan LeDuc had a great showing except for 1 game. Holy shit. He playing round 4. Oh, Conan Jennings. All right. He played against the Ultramarine who ended up winning it. Yeah, Blade of Ultramars stuff. Was Conan playing Storm Raven? I know he loves his Storm Raven. No, he's playing Requester Executioners. To be fair to all the Ultramarines players in the world, there's a lot of people who say, "Oh, I've always loved Ultramarines, and I play them when they're good, but I always love them." This man is one of the diehards because I think every time I've ever seen him play, he's playing Space Marines of some kind. And so even when they're bad, he finds a way. So he is enjoying the fruits of his labors and playing when they're good. Ryan LeDuc playing Changehost of Deceit. Let's go. That's exciting. This detachment's super weird. You do get the benefit of taking Lords of Change, which are pretty neat. They do get huge buffs from the detachment ability. The benefit now is that they can cast Kabbalistic Rituals as long as you have a Thousand Suns unit within 6 inches of them. And for some reason, visible. It's like the only detachment ability that provides you an aura that requires visibility to your friendly units, which is super weird. I guess because they cast spells on each other. That's the idea. But it gives you more casters, generally speaking. The Lords of Change also have 1,000,000 wounds. So unlike the normal Kabbalistic Ritual casters, where either you're Magnus and your wounds are super valuable, because they're very hard for you to lose unless you do them yourself and then you just eat them, and your opponent gets there's a little happy dance every time Magnus takes miscast damage. But all the infantry casters die after like 2 miscasts, or they kill Rubric Marines out of their squads. So you're just losing pieces on the table by failing casting rolls. The Lords of Change don't care. They just will take D3 damage, and it's like, who cares really? We're just this big pool of wounds anyway, so it doesn't really matter. One Lord of Change has Duplicitous Malediction, which gives you 3,000 Suns redeployments, which is weird because you cannot redeploy the Changehost units with it, only the 1,000 Suns. The weird, like, idiosyncratic give and take from this detachment rears its ugly head. We've got a Terminator Sorcerer, plus 2 units of 5 Rubric Marines, 2 Predator Destructors, 3 units of Flamers. I think largely if you give them the AP buff, so you give them Twist of Fate to give them plus 2 AP, then the Flamers actually go kind of hard. The real downside is that they're shooting D6 AP 1 shots. And so into like Space Marine profiles, a lot of times their Space Marines just like save on 4s. And it's whatever. But the Flamers will start to stack damage up if you bump their AP. The other benefit, too, is that the Lords of Change really like AP buffs, so Twist of Fate is huge on them. And they love having rerolls. So if you have the... I I forget the name of the reroll, Kabbalistic Ritual. But if you target the reroll target, then the Lords of Change go crazy with the extra D3 sustained hits that they get on their bolt. We have 5 Scarab Occult Terminators, 2 units of Screamers, 2 units of Sekitar Robots. That's for the redeployment, so we can push them up way in the front to push back enemy infiltrators, and then redeploy them back. And then a Zangor unit for utility. This is a weird list. It has a ton of utility. I imagine it scores really well, because literally every single stratagem gives you defensive buffs for your Thousand Suns or Changehost units. So you can down up to 2 Scintillating Legion units per turn. So you can pull like 2 Flamer squads up every turn for 1 CP. Or you have reactive moves. On them, you have Lone Operative on them. Reactive 18-inch Lone Operative. -1 to hit on Scintillating Legion units. So all these little units with 4+ vulnerable saves and a boatload of wounds, because all the Flamers and the Screamers are T4 3 wounds each, can be really obnoxious to deal with. And you can kind of just like post them up in the middle of the table. Your opponent has to play around 1 million reactive stratagems, and if they don't, then they just won't kill them. And you get to continuously farm value without having to commit anything important. And then if you can get in, you have like the combination of the Scarab Occult Terminators plus the Lords of Change, so you have enough casters to get all your buffs off, and the Lords of Change themselves will actually do some serious damage once they're hitting something big. It's kind of cool. Lords of Change do not have +1 to cast, no. There is you can give, I think that you can have it so that they give a cast bonus, if I remember. Yeah, so there's an enhancement for Thousand Suns units that gives them +1 to cast if a Scintillating Legion is near them. However, you can't give it to the Lords of Change. Should actually be sick, but they are going to be worse casters than a lot of your Thousand Suns stuff. The other weird thing, there's like a bunch of weird idiosyncrasies. It's honestly, I kind of wish that instead of giving the demons a faction rule, or a faction keyword that was different than their codex keyword, and then said in some detachments you can take these, I wish that they had given them the same faction keyword and then said in all but some detachments you can't take these, if they wanted to restrict them to specific detachments. Because there's like a bunch of abilities. For example, a really good one is the Demon Prince, I think, who like eats Psyker's souls when they die, but he doesn't eat the Lords of Change because they're not Thousand Suns. And like there's a bunch of abilities like that where your internal synergies will not affect the scintillating stuff. So a lot of them are just like they exist outside of the normal army structure. Demon Prince is another good example because he gives your Thousand Suns infantry stealth, which doesn't affect Flamers because they are, while they're in the Thousand Suns Codex, they are Changehost Flamers. They're a different keywords. They don't count. Which would actually be really strong. So there's like a bunch of combinations that just won't work. And that's another good example of them. I think the same as the Mutalith Vortex Beast. Yeah, when Thousand Suns Psykers channel the warp, you don't get +1 to cast from the Mutalith Vortex Beast because they are not Thousand Suns. The Changehost Psykers are not Thousand Suns Psykers. On the Lords of Change. So yeah, I don't know. I think it goes to show you, and so, to some extent, how rushed the development of the Thousand Suns Codex is. Because I think that this detachment would actually be, it probably, if they had made the change to give the Lords of Change the ability to affect and be affected by Kabbalistic rituals from printing, and they had made that change as well, I think this detachment actually would have been very playable from printing. Now, I think the only reason that people are looking at it is because the Lord of Change profile is really good currently. So I don't know. The Shard of a Chaos God doesn't have +1 to cast, yeah. When you're like little Demon Prince will get it. Yeah, I don't know. It is weird. It's because the Lords of Change could not originally cast, right? On printing, they had no abilities that were meant to combo with Thousand Suns units because they weren't meant to have the army ability at all. Which is like, okay, kind of clearly stupid, but it is what it is. Yeah, I don't know. It's a mess. I don't know. The whole Thousand Suns Codex is a mess, in my opinion. Especially after they made everything sort of inconsistent and overcosted. Kudos to Ryan Leduc for going 4-1 with it, though, because that is no small feat with the current iteration of Thousand Suns. And it's better than it was 2 months ago, but oh boy, is it still not that exciting. There's some scintillating Legion results that I'm sure we don't really care about right now. Oh, thank you for the membership, Kraken Met. I'm glad that you've slithered your 8 monstrous arms over there to join the channel membership. Hope you enjoy. We do have some Death Guard, who I'm playing against on Wednesday, I believe, over on the Twitch channel. Benson Bledsoe went X1 with Virulent Victorium, rocking an Arch Contaminator Putrefier, a Demon Prince of Nurgle with Revolting Regeneration, so the Field of Pain, Lord of Contagion, Malignant Plaguecaster, Mortarion. We have 10 Plague Marines, 1 Rhino, bunch of Predators, 1 Annihilator, 1 Destructor, triple-fetted Bloodrounds, Poxwalkers, Deathshroud Terminators. Kind of normal stuff, to be honest. Seems like the army sort of settled at the 1 Deathshroud Terminator unit. Basically, every single time we look at an archetype, it has the singleton DST unit. It is sad that Deathshroud Terminators have been priced out of being played by themselves. They're basically only useful if you have Lords of Contagion for them, but it is what it is. We then have all the heavy Blight Launcher guys for the backline, some backline shooting, and then a Rhino for the big, huge Plague Marine unit. The Arch Contaminator is rerolls. Yeah, reroll wound rolls when you control an objective marker, which you likely will, because you're going to disembark 20 OC onto an objective or 22 OC onto an objective when they go to fight. Although you're already getting fire support from the Rhino, I guess like maybe it lets you fire support more often, and it works on melee. I guess that's the big benefit. Pretty good stuff. Kind of classic. Thousand Suns rules a roller coaster. It's weird that you simply don't have an army roll if you roll bad. Yeah. Comparing it to like my favorite comparison is to Oath of Moment, because Oath of Moment I think is like it's a very hit or miss army roll. Like there's some matchups where it's not very useful. Some players just didn't put their list in. Incredible. At this event. There's some matchups where it's not very good. And then there's, obviously, depending on the sub-faction you're playing, it can be very strong. If you get +1 to wound, and you could potentially get 2 of them. But imagine if like it required a leadership test for you to choose an Oath of Moment target. It wouldn't be controversial anymore. It would just be bad. People would be like, wait a minute, 30% of the time I just don't get it? You're like, yeah. And what if you also took damage and you fail? And that's almost exactly what the Thousand Suns ability is. Like, you can do the Mortal Wounds, and you can do the AP buffs, and you can split those to different targets, which is different than Oath of Moment. But the actual added damage is probably similar over the course of a turn. The one big benefit is Temporal Surge, because it changes your board position. However, it's random, right? So, like, you get that, and you probably do as much damage as you do without the moment. But it's like a 50-50 chance you actually get all those benefits. And there's a very not unreasonable chance that you take a bunch of damage as you do it. And so, like, the comparison between those two army abilities on 2 very similar armies is very funny to me, because it's always like, one of them just works every time, and the other one is hyper random. And you have no idea how it's going to work. Yeah, I don't like it. The old points buy system they had was, I think, okay, but it is what it is. Over the holidays, played against your Warforged. You played Warforged Thousand Suns versus your friend's Ultramarines, took 15 mortal wounds from spellcasting. Yeah. Yeah, it's so much damage. Especially for an army that's like elite and expensive on a per model basis too. Taking damage on them is like super bad. like they're like Marine plus cost level, right? The rubric rates are like 18 points a bottle or something, 19 points a bottle. And so losing a rubric raid every time you cast potentially is like super bad. Let's talk about Lyle Dixon's Astra Militarum. Sounds like Tyranids even out there. I mean, roll 50% of the time you don't roll high. Well, at least they get +1 strength. You know what? At least that works every time. At least that's something. Lyle playing Grizzled Company. Got a Acadian Command Squad, a Commissar with Abhuman Details, so we get the cool Bulgrin unit. Tempestus Command Squad, so we get a Deep Striking unit. And then with the additional orders they can issue, it allows them to either benefit from their command rod themselves, or you could use them to out-of-phase order stuff, which is important. It's always interesting to me that we don't take... because being affected by orders is so important in this attachment, that we don't take Gaunt's Ghosts. Because extra orders on Gaunt's Ghost feels really strong. But I guess it's not necessary in most of the cases, because you have like more orders than you have units, basically. We have Acadian Shock Trooper Squad, Kadishan Jungle Fighter Squad. So that's for the Acadian Shock Troopers is so that we get a Master Box off of the Command Squad. And they're going to be pushing, what, like 3 orders a turn? Jungle Fighters for a Scouting unit. Triple Torox. 1 Attilan Rough Rider units. Bulgrin Squads for, or 1 for the Commissar and 1 just to have, I guess. The downside is the Bulgrin Squad don't really get the benefit of the detachment ability because they don't get affected by orders. They get to play the reroll once the wound, right? That's just like baseline. If they target something on an objective. Nope. Just kidding. It requires that the requirement to get rerolls is contingent on being affected by orders. So the second Bulgrin unit actually doesn't get any bonuses whatsoever. They're just a guy. But at least the Abhuman Detail guy is going to be okay. They can get all the rerolls and stuff. We have triple Kazakin squads for the Toroxes. Rogodorn Battle Tank. So we actually do, if we staple the 2 Rogodorns together, we have orders for all of them. More than enough. You can even, because the battle tank at that point, or the commander at that point orders 3 vehicles, we can basically be bumping most of the Toroxes early, or at least 1 Torox plus the 2 Rogodorns. The nice thing here is that we get the ablative armor. Obviously, you don't get the floating reroll that the commander does, but you have so many orders off the commander that you almost might as well use the battle tank in exchange. Downside being, of course, that you need the 2 of them to be within 12 inches to get the benefits. And then we have the Tempestus Scion Squad for the big unit to hop into. The nice thing there is that the Scions reroll their wounds innately. They don't have hit rerolls built in. They get reroll wounds of 1 all the time, and then full rerolls if they target an enemy on an objective. So because they already have the wound reroll portion, they don't really care about that second part of the detachment ability. But the one downside is that they do get sustained hit, and they do get from the Tempestus Command Squad. And then they do get all of those cool order bonuses, but they don't normally have hit rerolls. So giving them hit rerolls and then also allowing them to apply wound rerolls on top of that makes them basically hyper efficient. All their attacks are rerolling all the time, which is cool. Oh, the Commissar can order both. Oh, of course, because he gets the +1 order as well. That's right, Chant. Yeah, fair enough. Just kidding. That does make sense. Yeah, I've mostly seen the 1 Bulgrin build, but the 2 Bulgrin build I haven't seen too many times. I guess it does require that they stand within 6 inches of each other, but that's not the end of the world. And I guess like you could do the start of phase order like randomly if you end up like charging. If you move outside 6 but charge back inside 6, you can like start a phase order the Commissar to give +1 to hit to the Bulgrin unit before they attack. Okay. No. All right. Fair enough. Yeah. I totally missed that, chat. You're so right. That's neat. Good stuff. All right, chat. Those are basically all the X and 1 results from Glass City. Everyone else is basically playing Ultramarines, which is boring. Oh, there's some World Eaters actually. Let's talk about World Eaters. World Eaters ago. It was Angron World Eaters in Berserker Warband, which is cool. It's nice. Angron definitely seems like he has re-entered vogue as the meta choice for World Eaters, because he's basically in most World Eaters builds nowadays. I guess the 340 point level is like finally the time where you're like, okay, I'll take this big idiot who can mess up my army ability when he dies, but it's fine. We have Karn the Betrayer, a Slaughterbound with Berserker Glaive, 110 mana with Berserkers for Karn with a Chaos Rhino, 3 units of 2 Chaos Spawn, plus 3 units of 3/8 Bound, 2 Forge Friends with Ectoplasma Cannons for some shooting, and then some utility in the back line. Kind of standard stuff. It feels a little light on the board, right? 3x3/8 Bound, 2 gun platforms and a bunch of utility plus Angron, and the 1 Berserker squad is like 4 big melee units plus Angron, which I guess is enough. And in fairness, the Berserker Glaive guy hits like an absolute truck, right? Because he's doing the extra damage, attacks and damage, in addition to the bonus attacks and strength from the detachment ability, in addition to his once per game. So he actually hits super duper hard regardless. But it is basically only 5 melee units. However, you do get guns in this build, unlike most World Leaders lists, so that seems good. A little bit of Adeptus Mechanicus play over here as well. Martial Arthurs in a Halo Screed Battle Clade. It's nice to see Adeptus Mechanicus still doing well. I do wonder if, like, the nerfs that they got were pretty prodigious, right? They went up like 200 points in a lot of their builds. But I think a lot of that was because builds were like spamming individual data sheets like so many times. I do wonder if, like, how well Adeptus Mechanicus is going to fare in the new format, because it definitely feel playable, but they certainly don't feel like the same level as they were previously. But I'm curious to see, and it does feel like a lot of people were like, "Wow, this is too much work," and they just hopped off and went to do something else. They went to go play Ultramarines or whatever because it wasn't worth trying to make the faction viable. But I don't know. It seems like they have a lot going on still. So we're playing Belisarius Call, a Sanctified Ordnance Manipulus, so extra range. Skitarii Rangers ×2. Dune Rider. 3 units of Iron Strider Belisari. Holy crap. A Cataphront Destroyer Squad. So that's for the Sanctified Ordnance the guy to go into. He gives you rerolls on your hazardous checks for the plasma cannons, and then he increases the range of the flamers as well. So you get a very good Overwatch brick in the backline there to protect the frontline Zakarian units. A Servitor Battleclade, 3 Servitor Battleclades, Jesus. I guess there are still like crazy points per wound. It's 9 models for 60 wounds that advance and do everything, right? So they're like, what are they? 6.1, like 6.1 points each or something. Or like 6 point something, 6 and a little bit points per model on a 4+ save profile that gets a ton of really good weapon profiles too. Kind of crazy value when you think about it. 1 big unit of Zakarian Infiltrators, 2 small units of Zakarian Infiltrators. Not a Rust Stalker to be seen. They have all gone the way of the dodo, I guess. No more Rust Stalkers anywhere. But we do have the big unit that can jail people early so that you can create space for your Iron Striders and Cataphrons to actually just pick them apart. Very straightforward, I guess. Just a bunch of guns. So many guns. Why do I think some Space Marine factions get command point generation characters, but others don't? So I think GW will add more or less of them to the game in the future. Well, I think the general trend is that they will add more of everything to everyone. I don't think that there's particular rhyme or reason to whether or not a faction gets a command point generator beyond which factions have traditionally had command point generators. Like in the past, command point economy has been like an Ultramarine thing. Basically, Ultramarines have always had the most command point generation available to them. And Space Wolves have always had at least one. Space Wolves and Dark Angels. And so I think that's just like how they've decided to do it. This is some characters. Space Wolves tend to theme that around like, the wise old sage. Whereas Dark Angels, I guess Azrael's just such a Chad that he always generates CP for people. But I think that they've just decided that those are the routes they want to go for those factions. I don't think there's necessarily like a particular design ethos behind it. Besides Ultramarines, I think Ultramarines have always been like, these guys are the logistics guys, so they get good resource economy. Thousand Suns lost all their CP economy, yeah. Ideally, I guess the idea was that they were like the rituals were supposed to be a return to like they're basically free stratagems. I guess like previously in Index they just had a free stratagem ability, right? Because you could ritual for him. But the new rituals are just they're just such a prodigious downgrade from the index version. It is sad. All right, chat. Well, that's all I have to say about the Glass City GT. I don't think I have all the other lists are sort of cookie cutter, regular stuff. So I don't think there's much else to talk about there that are X1 anyway. That said, there are many other GTs we could look through if we have any particular results we want to take a peek at. So if anyone has anything that they want to talk about, we can hop it in. Get Blood Angels CP generation characters. Yeah, I do wonder too if like I don't know. I don't think at this stage I trust that there's a cohesive plan, especially for Space Marines. Like I imagine that in some cases they probably consider very careful endpoint economies based on the strength of the stratagems they give them. However, I don't think that they have any plan for Space Marines. It feels like with Space Marines, they just do shit. And you're like, okay, sure. I would say, like, to some extent, like, I don't know, command point generation for very aggressive melee armies that have 1 million melee buffs feels like it could go very poorly very quickly, right? Like Blood Angels, for example, that can suddenly fuel like Lance, Lethal, and Advance and Charge top of the first turn, and then hold up a defensive strat round 2 without having to do anything, feels very scary. Whereas, like, you have like the factions that do have command regen, like you have Space Wolves, which can do that, except that they don't have detachments that are really conducive to that game plan, and they also don't have unique units that like hit very hard in melee. So, like, well, that's fine. And kind of the same thing with Dark Angels. Like all the Dark Angels unique units are like either kind of squishy or very slow, so they don't really engage until round 2 or 3. So like the command point generation isn't like that big of a deal. However, I wouldn't be surprised if they just like randomly dropped command point regen. They're like, hey guys, Tycho's back and he generates CP now, and you're like, all right, man, I don't know. So I don't think you could like prognosticate that well about it. Like, you know, we just got an ultimate character who regenerates infinite times. So like, who fucking knows anymore? Anything to sell models. Yeah, I think that's definitely the case, chat. So Biosanctic. I don't know about specific detachments, chat. It's hard for me to find results for particular detachments. It's a little bit tough. You can look for Emperor's Children stuff. Although I talked about Emperor's Children this morning. I don't know if there's explicitly Court of the Phoenician results. It does feel like the top end of Emperor's Children play is going to continue to be Coterie of the Conceited, excuse me, and less so the Court of the Phoenician, but we'll see. I did play against Fulgrim list Court of the Phoenician the other day, and I was impressed by it. It felt much better when you just took all the points you would spend on Fulgrim and you just turned them into Mauler Fiends, and you just took 2.5 Mauler Fiends for Fulgrim. They definitely do a lot more than that guy does. He sucks. He's just not a good data sheet, which sucks. Yeah, I don't have much on Emperor's Children or on more Gene Stealer Cult here. Could we talk about the Deceptors list for my RTT? Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we could talk about my RTT. I did play in a tournament over the weekend. I didn't do very well. I went 2-1, which is okay. But I played against a very cool Deceptors list. Grab my pictures. I played Forge Father Seekers. Here's my list. You ready? You want to see my beautifully painted army, chats? Are you ready? Look at this gorgeous army. I assembled most of it on stream on like Thursday. So I did not have much time, but I was playing my Forge Father Seekers list that I have been repping on stream constantly. Look at all these beautiful little tanks I have. I love it. They're so fun. But I played against we played against Black Templars round 1. That was pretty good. They're mostly doing the same thing I was, except my guns are better, so that's pretty good. And then round 2, I played against this Alpha Legion list, which was super duper cool, and it was a Deceptors build. I did end up losing. I had some unfortunate dice. It was going to be a close game regardless. I did have unfortunate dice. We had Vashtor push in the middle here. He rampant ingressed, ran up. I was like, I'll overwatch him. I'll plink him down, and then I have a Vanguard Veteran Squad with a Mortal Wound Bomb that could probably kill him if he's taken any damage whatsoever. I think the average dice is that if I Forge Father combo off on Vashtor, after he's taken basically like 2 to 3 damage, he should die like essentially 100% of the time. A full Land Reader Redeemer Overwatch did nothing. I was like, ooh, okay. And then he swings in. He has 12 anti-vehicle 4-up devastating attacks. So, assuming he hits every time, which he should if he Dark Pacts for sustains, he has to roll 75% successful wounds to kill me on 4-ups, and he just did it. And so the Redeemer died. So I lost my Redeemer. I go back to shoot him. I do 4 damage to him, and then my Lancer shoots him, doesn't kill him, and takes 6 damage on Hazardous from his ability, and then died to a bolt pistol, and then auto exploded on the rest of my army. It was like, so, and then like throughout the final like couple turns of the game, my like average, the bell curve of my average dice just like continued to decrease. So it was unfortunate. I think like had that whole interaction gone well, because like Vashtor then just like he killed this thing, pushed forward, got to my home objective, cleared my home objective. It was like a nightmare. If that went, and then I lost by like 5 points. So if that had gone to average, I think I win the game, which was unfortunate. However, I want to talk about the list because it was really, really cool, and my opponent was clearly very good at playing it. Let me see if I can grab it in the specific list off of Best Coast pairings. All of his Demon Princes, though, he had 3 foot Demon Princes, and they were all converted to be Alpha Legion characters. So he had one, you can kind of see him in the picture, in the middle of the picture here. Can I zoom in? Is that going to work? Ah! Okay, here we go. This is like Alfarius from 30K. That was one of his Demon Princes. And then he had like the Alfarius and Omegon were another one. And I think this is Angron, 30K Angron, if I remember correctly, who was also another Demon Prince. Those are his foot Demon Princes. I was like, that's sick. And then all the stuff was like painted to be Alpha Legion. His Warp Talons were Warp Talons, but they had Grey Knight teleport backpacks instead of the jump packs. Because like Alpha Legion, I guess, like aren't like demon people, so they don't have like possessed, I guess. I don't know the lore, but my opponent was explaining it to me, and I was like, that's sick. That's a real commitment to the bit. Let me grab, here we go. Nope, just kidding. Let me grab the list off of the event page. We got it. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Here's the list. All right. So it's Deceptors, which is the detachment where, and I believe, I'm going to double check here. I believe that my opponent actually ended up going 3-0 because he won that game. He didn't. Oh, he lost round 3. Just kidding, chat. That's too bad. I saw him. He got paired against Tyranids, and I was like, well, good thing he's going to go 3-0. But I guess he went 2-1. Too bad. In any case, I do think it's an interesting list to talk about. So it's Deceptors. So it's the detachment abilities. Like you can basically infiltrate. It's up to 3 Legionnaire units and 3 cultist units. You can infiltrate up in the middle of the table. So if you get deployment control, you can put cultists on all the middle objectives and then obsec them if you go first and then run away, which is cool. It does also have a bunch of reactive effects. So it has a reactive move, a 6-inch reactive move for infantry or mounted. And he does have a Lord Discordant. So you can reactive move to Lord Discordant when he pushes in, which is sweet. You have... The other cool thing is like you can auto explode people's vehicles. That's why my Lancer taking a bunch of damage to random hazardous checks is really bad, because then once it blows up, he auto explodes it, which is sick. And then when your opponent's below starting strength or below half of starting strength, you could blow them up. with rerolls and stuff. But mostly you're playing board control and then reactive moves, so you're like skirmishing quite a bit. So the goal was to play a bunch of just an absolute huge number of infantry. So we had a jump pack Chaos Lord with Shroud of Obfuscation, which is stealth and lone op. It's basically like the Ghost Weave cloak from Vanguard Spearhead. We have Cypher, so we can CP tax people in the middle. Dark Apostle with Soul Link, which is really cool tech, which we'll talk about in a second. 3 Demon Princes, just Corn Demon Princes for the extra strength, so they go to strength 10, and they're just like attrition pieces in the middle. So we have so many infantry, plus we have Cypher, so they can get Lone Operative off the infantry, and they can run up the middle of the table, just with a ton of Legionnaires behind them, and play really aggressively. So you just like want to be annoying profiles in the middle to kill. Lord Discordant on Hellstalker, so we can push him up early. He's really fast, and then you can react to boof him to keep him alive, and then Vash for the Arcafane. Literally just as another Demon Prince, basically, who can rapid ingress then charge. 2 Cultist Mobs, so 1 for the backline, and then 1 for the front, so you can infiltrate them to obstacle objectives. And then there's a bunch of Legionary squads, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units of 5, and 1 unit of 10. That is, 35 Legionaries? The unit of 10 goes with the Dark Apostle. And here's your combo. So you have Soul Link. This requires like 7 FAQs to be worthwhile, by the way. You have Soul Link, which you can use to steal the Jump Pack Chaos Lord's datasheet abilities. So Soul Link transposes the Dark Apostle's datasheet abilities to and replaces them with the Jump Pack Chaos Lord, which allows you to it gives you the free stratagem, like the Rites of War that he gets, and then it gives you 6-inch pylon and consolidate. So you put them with the 10-man unit, and then they get for free, they get 6-inch pylon and consolidate, and you can use the reroll strat on them if your target something below starting strength for 0 CP. Here's the weird part, though, which is that because the Dark Apostle is a multi-model datasheet, as long as you have Dark Disciples in your unit, the Disciples will retain the Apostle's datasheet rules. So because the Disciples don't care, as long as they're part of their original unit, they are part of an attached unit, which means their leadership clauses still apply. The ability on the unit's datasheet to give +1 to wounded melee only requires that you have a Dark Apostle in the unit, not that the Dark Apostle has that ability. So what you can do is remove all of the Dark Apostle's leadership, or all of the Dark Apostle's abilities, and then replace them with the Chaos Lords, but retain your +1 to wound. In addition, for some reason, there's an FAQ for Soul Link that says if you have an ability with limited uses and you've already used it, and then you already use it, and then you Soul Link, can you use it again? And the answer is yes, which means that if you, for example, use a free strat with the Jump Pack Lord, so let's say we reactive move on our opponent's turn, and then we go to our turn and we Soul Link, we can free strat again on the Dark Apostle, even though the Chaos Lord says once per battle round. So you can use like the reroll strat for free, even if you've already free stratted. I don't know why that FAQ exists. It's really weird, but it is there. So it's this incredibly convoluted series of abilities to basically give the Dark Apostle both of these datasheet rules, which is cool. Is it super good or hyper relevant? No, not really. It's still just a Legionnaire squad, so it's like hitting you with mostly a bunch of chain swords. But like Legionaries, it's good enough. You get the 2 heavy melee weapon guys, and you get like okay shooting and like a bunch of chainsword attacks. And if you give them hit rerolls, like it's okay. But it's not like you're not blowing up knights or whatever with that whole like wombo combo of effects. But it is kind of neat. And so this army just pushes a ton of high OC units into you and forces you to like activate a million times into them. And it's, they can basically just attrition you out of nothing. It was a great game. We had a really good game. And it was a really cool list to see. It's always cool to see like these weird off-brand lists. That's one of the cool things about RTTs, I think, is because like there's basically no guarantee that you play against anything meta. So you could just play against some guy, some like absolute sweetheart who just loves Alpha Legion to the point that he's designed explicitly designed the most convoluted Alpha Legion list of all time. It was sweet. It was a good time. So that was my event anyway. Yeah. But Deceptors maybe slept on. I don't know. Probably not, but they're okay. Which was cool. You definitely run 30k Primarchs as Demon Princes. Yeah, I think that's a very strong proxy for sure. Especially if the whole idea is that you're going to theme your army around not having demons in it outside of Vashtor apparently. Like it, I don't know. It's very cool. I like it, chance. Picturing the opponent telling me about all the lower accurate army, and I'm learning about it, all the hoops that they have to go through to do weird things. 100% that was the interaction we had. He's like, here's my combo. And also look at my cool conversions. I was like, hold up, go back. wait a minute. Tell me about Soul Link again. And it's funny because like I went through all the FAQs to like, read what he was talking about. And it's funny because like half of the Chaos Space Marine FAQ are just Soul Link FAQs because it's the weirdest enhancement of the game. That was almost exactly the interaction we had though. It was very funny. Incredible. Do I do list reviews for channel members? I usually do list reviews for Super Chat for $5. Anyway, Chance, any hot takes about the new Necron datasheet? We'll talk about those tomorrow. I'll have a whole. We'll dedicate a stream to it. For sure. Deceptor's going to get a lot of power soul linking the new Chaos Space Marine Apothecary or Red Corsair Command Squad. Yeah, depending on what their datasheets are, for sure. That could be good. If the Apothecary regenerates stuff, it might be based on what the timing is. Because Soul Link is start of your command phase. So, I guess actually that would work, right? Because if they regenerate in command phase, you would steal their ability first, and then you would start to get guys back. That's pretty cool. Yeah, Soul Link, honestly, it has so many like cool implications. The other one we talked about a couple weeks ago was duplicating Death Hex with it, which is kind of neat. So you can keep a Chaos Terminator Sorcerer in reserve and then just keep using Death Hex off of him with Soul Link on whatever character's on the board, because it doesn't require that the character you're Soul Linking off of is on the battlefield. They just have to be in your army, and not in a transport, I guess. Probably. Regenerate Possessed. Oh yeah, with a Master Possession. That'd be cool. And for $24, you can force me to play 3 Storm Sages. Nobody's done it. Nobody's done it. I do owe a Drukhari game this week, though. Can't wait for a Scarab detachment. Like a Canoptech Scarab detachment. Oh, actually, chat. Somebody was asking about Biosanctic Broodsurge earlier. I did find you all a Biosanctic Broodsurge list at Saffron Slam. This is 26 players, by the way. Or 29. I think there were 3 drops. I think it was 26 at the end. But either way, just close to 30. And we did have Samuel Squires here on Gene Stealer Cults. Go X1. This one was won by Blood Angels, by the way, who had a cool Blade Guard veteran Rage Cursed Onslaught list. I talked about it in my video this morning. One thing I did. I'll jump into this list. I put the combo together, and then I forgot to talk about the biggest part of it. It has a Blade Guard Ancient plus a Lieutenant plus a Blade Guard Veteran squad. So you can engage with them and then keep falling back and charging to get the detachment ability again. And if you Battle Shock them with a strat, they still retain OC1 because the Ancient gives them 1 OC bonus. So you could go from 1 to 0 and then add +1 from the Ancient to retain OC1. So you can continue to like do actions and hold objectives, or you can't do actions, but you can continue to hold objectives even if you're battle shocked, which was really cool. And then I forgot to talk about that during the video. And Thomas over here popped out and called me out for that, which was fair. Honestly, very, very cool. Oops. Very, very cool combo there. But we saw Biosanctic Broodsurge at 3rd place with double Abominant plus a Biophagus. Just one Biophagus, interesting. Locust, Patriarch with Biomorph adaptation, so extra damage, and a Reductus Saboteur. We had one Auto Pistol Hybrid Squad, double Hand Flamer Hybrid Squads, one truck to carry them around in, Amberance ×3 to punch people, 2 Achilles Root Runners with Spotters to give the extra ballistic skill, so you hit on 4s firing indirectly, which is important, to provide crossfire. And then we have 2 Hybrid Metamorph units, that's for the Biophagus to jump into, plus 3 units of Pierce Train. Genestealers. This is like kind of normal. I think this is basically like normal Biosanctic Broodsurge stuff. This army is very scary. It does have like a +1 to wound against monsters and vehicles in melee, so the aberrants can hit pretty hard. It does fall down a little bit on AP characteristic, but there's a bunch of weird stuff you can do because there's a 6-inch pile and consolidate strat, and you can buff your charges really high so that you can do things like slingshot the Patriarch really far. If you put him in the 10-man Genestealer unit, they can you can get him, do like a combat orbit on a charge, and then get him into a second unit. And he's usually good enough with Biomorph adaptation to pick up like 5 models. And then, because you also get the +1 attack on the charge too. And then the Genestealers themselves will pick up something else. So you can 2-for-1 off the Patriarch. That's like the really cool thing that this detachment does, besides just make charges out of Deep Strike and jail you really hard. So that's pretty cool. Saboteur in every GSC list, is it because it's good or is it because of Victrix? No, it's because it's good. I don't think that there has been a metagame in the entire edition where Saboteurs weren't in Genestealer cult lists. It's a lone operative, so it's good for holding objectives. It's an infiltrator, so it's good for screening. It's hard to interact with because either you can't shoot it or it blows you up with remote explosives. And then it also just has good shooting as well. So it's like a super good utility piece that can also do some screening and a little bit of damage too. They've just basically always been good. Always been good, basically. Anyway, chat. I think that's going to be our discussion for today. I don't think I have much else to talk about unless I randomly find a really cool list in the last 2 minutes here. But I will be live over on Twitch. If you want to come hang out with me, we're going to be live in I want to say just about an hour. I'm going to be playing against a Darren. He's rocking some Adeptus Mechanicus. I'm playing Salamanders and with the Forge Father Seekers. We'll see if I have enough attacks to get through Sicarian Horde. I don't think I do, which feels weird because you're like, oh, it's Salamanders. Shouldn't you be good at killing infantry? 2 wounded infantry with a 5+ Fiona Bane. Less good. So we'll see. I don't know. We'll find out, I guess. Should be fun, though. I should have a good time. Yeah, so please come hang out with me over there. I'll drop a link to my Twitch in the thingamajig, and I'll see you all over there. We'll be live tomorrow talking about the new 500 Worlds data sheets. I have a video set up for that. Don't forget to check out my video coverage for the Tennessee Elite Open this weekend. The first day coverage event is live right now on YouTube, so give yourself the notification to go check that out when it's live. And don't forget to check out Captain Con and the little thing right up here, coupon code TT2026 to get 10% off your badge price at checkout. That's going to be last weekend of January, first weekend of February, 2026. That's this year now. So just under a month to go before we get to enjoy our 3 days of gaming over there. So yeah, I'm excited to see you all there. I'll be there myself doing something, maybe playing Salamanders even. I'm not even sure. And otherwise, yeah, cheers everyone. Keep it classy, folks. Have happy wargaming, and I will see you over on Twitch. Cheers, everyone.